wanted to create a convention that we felt like was truly built from the ground up to be very inclusive of everyone, like make everyone feel like they really belong in the world of fandom, because they do. Everybody deserves a seat at the table and deserves to feel comfortable and safe attending events, and not to be shut out of like networking opportunities and fun stuff to do. So that was the original impetus, and it's been so much fun that we keep doing it, just because it's the number of awesome people that we've met along the way, and just how much everyone, including us, looks forward to that weekend in October every year. It's not that big a stretch to say that sometimes people do go and then come out a little bit changed on the other side of it, at least in terms of their new friends and their new thoughts on things, and like rejuvenated inspiration.
I think the conversations is what Jesse means. When you come out of it and you've had all of these amazing conversations that you don't necessarily get to have in everyday life, people who are smart and funny and usually quite goofy, and it's becoming a family.
And that starts with our show and our means of taking care of you, which is by entertaining you. And that involves us telling you all the reasons why you decided to attend. I'm sure you know them well. But now it's time to turn the spotlight on the Multiverse Convention with your host, Joe Compton. Hello, everybody. Yes, we are here back with another season of the Spotlight on the Multiverse, and I don't know that I could have thought of a better way to start it than having our 3-time alum join us, and man who's been to I think you said you've been to all of them. Is that correct, Kevin? You've been to every single multiverse so far?
Nope, I didn't make the first one because then they had COVID right afterwards, and that's when I came in.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, of course, I'm speaking to Kevin A. Davis, Mr. Inked Publishing himself, the man, the myth, the legend, and thank you so much for being here, sir, and doing this. And tell everybody a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
All right. I'm a fantasy author, 20 books. I have just started doing collaborations with my wife, April Davis. We did a YA adventure romance trilogy, which was a blast, which she says she'll never do again. So I guess it was a blast on my side. I'm also working with Tim Lewis on another collaboration, so that's been fun.
Oh, nice.
And I find it really makes the places that we had the most, I don't want to even say conflict, but discussion over, where we had the most, indecision of how we were going to, mold, pieces in, and went back and forth, are the best spots, because you have two minds working on it.
Yeah, I collaboration is a very interesting and intricate, certainly delicate in a lot of ways too, because everybody has an ego and everybody has a way of doing things as writers, and so it's kind of an interesting. I think it's a good challenge for a writer.
It is. One of the things we did, we had already gotten started on it, and then Jan C. Patterson came up with doing it together collab book, and she's done like so much, including with Brandon Sanderson, of course.
Right.
But she's done ghostwriting and a number of pieces. So I took a lot of her pieces to heart, and one of her biggest focus was respect. Recognize that everyone has an idea, and to respect the idea, and then work towards a new idea that works for everyone involved. And that was so helpful in so many ways, because it really reframed it in a certain point of not just like, but my idea has to go forward. Instead it was, stop for a moment, look at the other idea, look at the other aspect, and respect it as a valid thing. And when you do, that's when a sort of magic happens, that you can, really come in with how can we get all these elements that we want into this moment, into this scene. So yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it, but like I said, it was, something that made us work harder. It probably takes twice as long to write a book. I wouldn't recommend it if you're trying to just get a whole bunch of books out, but it certainly is good to learn some new skills. And Tim is so on the humorous side, but he's also a pantser, and I'm a plotter, and that's created so much fun, because I'm like, Tim, the last chapter we just did this. He's like, oh, did we? I forgot. I was having so much fun writing this, but we can work it out, and we do. So
I love that. I love that prancers and plotters are getting together and making something happen. That's an unusual combination.
It is.
I am. Speaking of ideas, for you, part of the beauty of Multiverse is that you get to run a short story contest every year for the Multiverse.
We did for the last 2 years, and we're not doing it this year.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
Yeah, and one of the reasons is because I love it. I love doing. Yeah. Well, I do a lot of anthologies, and I love that concept. But we just haven't had enough of the attendees there really buying into it, wanting to do it. So yeah, we've struggled over this. I would love to. I love doing slush on short stories. I love looking at what writers come up with and how they evolve. Because I've got people who have been, pitching to us on short stories for 4 years now, and some of them are starting. Some of them have just gotten in on one of the ones, and I don't make the decision; the editors do. But I get to see the stories. So I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, so and so put in this, put in the story. Let me go look at it. And I'll look and I'll be like, that's getting much better. And then sure enough, editor, reads through it and they're like, they pick them and I'm like, there we go. They got in. And to me, that's exciting. So that was part of the reason to do that, was just to give that sort of same energy. But we've just, we weren't getting enough going on, that we weren't like, I don't know that I don't want to push people for it. It's got to be something. So yeah, this year we decided to let it go and not try to push people into it, because we were trying to really come on, bring your stuff.
Yeah. So what do you got going on this year at Multiverse? So you're just going to do some sponsoring stuff and do the sponsor as always, and
we're definitely going to be there sponsoring, doing all our pieces. I think we really want to see what we can offer more. As what can we do to help new writers? What can we what advice can we give? What can is there anything special we could offer the Multiverse people? So I think part of our thing is having some conversations with new authors while we're there, because we've done it before, and that's how we came up with our queer anthology, was working with Mandy Burke, and we had already had a number of my group interested, and then talking with Mandy Burke really made it happen. And so we're on a second one of that, we're taking submissions for that right now. So that's been part of that what came out of those conversations. So that's what we're going to be looking for: get as many conversations as we can with all the authors, established and new, and see what there is to offer. What can we bring to the table? Because we want to keep doing this. It's nothing that we want. We love going to Multiverse and being a part of that. So yeah, I'd love to see what we can offer. That's my main focus this year.
Nice. That's awesome. How did you find the new hotel and the new layout? How did you find it?
I loved it because it was so much of our space. It really, because it's like that conference center off to the side, that you really have a focus on just the Multiverse stuff. It's so beautiful, the little gardens and pieces out there. I took walks outside, just in a little pavilion, and sit out there, because it was like so peaceful and calm. You could walk right from a busy panel and then just go stand outside and enjoy nature for a minute. So I loved it. Of course, I'm especially biased because I live south of Atlanta. So for me, it was like, hey, I have to go as far. So that part of the bias is just purely, me. But as far as the actual event, I liked that we had so much more space. It was so casual and stretched out, and we were well separated from the hotel so that it was our space. This is where we walk in. We're not going up and down elevators in the same building that the other people are trying to do their stuff. We got it all to ourselves. I loved that. So yeah, enjoy it.
I did too. I thought, yeah, now that you mention it, it is interesting because it's one hallway down, and then you're in a different side of the hotel where it's just us there.
Yep. Yep.
That's really, yeah, that's a really cool aspect to it that is different and unique for most
Yep.
cons.
And I thought the spaces, the actual panel rooms and such were so spacious that there was plenty of room to do whatever. When Vanessa was doing, she does this, piece where the authors read out a bit, and then people act it out on the stage, and it was like so much. It was so lovely to be there doing that stuff because it was spacious, and we didn't have to worry about like, oh, we have to keep, tighten spaces. Not that the other space was, but we had. All of the rooms in this case were big, which I found great.
Yeah, and there's not like 17 floors either. It's like so the elevators are, it's not as jammed. You can go up and down stairs. You don't have to totally use elevators all the time, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah. And that other side, the hotel is gorgeous.
It is.
The whole place, and then just for me, being in a area that when we drove out, we were immediately in some more nature filled areas, and I was like, this is such a perfect spot. So I'm really glad Jesse and Allie found that. I think it was a great move.
I made my first trip to Waffle House out there, so my first Waffle House experience, which is just right down the street. So.
Yes, the Waffle Houses everywhere, between there and my house.
So you did the storytime thing that you just mentioned with Vanessa. Where does your YA fall in? Are you going to be doing the more tame one, the PG version one, or is the YA a little bit spicy enough to do the nighttime story time?
Well, it definitely isn't. Vanessa, did tell me that because I tend to get a little bit graphic. In the urban fantasy.
You picked a pretty bloody scene, if I remember correctly.
I didn't. She's like, and I need to talk to you about what PG-13 is, and I'm like, what? There was no sex. There was no, no language. We were good. But yes, all of my writing tends to. I have a very low, content as far as curse words, and where I'll go with those, with exception of the one that me and Tim are doing. That one, all boundaries were off as far as language was concerned. And then all of my romance is very off screen, very fade to black. Definitely not fourth wing material. Very just the romantic emotional parts of it with. A conflict that goes on over that, but it's not something that's on screen. So I tend to enjoy that level. So I definitely don't have anything good and spicy for that section. You're going to have to cover the 11 o'clock shifts.
All right, sounds good. I am. You just got done being the writing director at JordanCon. How was that for you? How did you enjoy that?
I love it because again, it's new writers, and not even just new writers, but writers that are looking to, increase their craft.
Yeah.
So at JordanCon we have a writing track and an author's workshop track. Yeah. One is panels, and the author's workshop is very much of a hands-on, piece.
Yeah.
So the only variation we had to that was the experience panel that you did, that you ran for me, moderated for me. And that one was a little outside of our normal thing, but we needed to make sure that we kept all the guests involved. And so I was pitching, we were pitching ideas to Jen and Jen H, and she took mine, and that's where I already had you slotted in as moderator because I needed someone. We had two things going on, one in the main room and one in the small room, and I needed someone who could do the show, right? Because if you've met Robbie and worked with Robbie, Robbie is a showman and he can run that front thing. And I know you're the showman too. So I was like, there we go. We got the people. All good. But no, that author's workshop track is all about trying to come out with a review on your pitch or some feedback on your slush, or sit down. And we had like Jody Lynn Nye.
Yeah.
We had Jancy Patterson, so we had people with experience, and not to say that all of our people aren't great. We had, Paige Christie, all the our people doing their bit.
Yeah.
But we, had some people that we don't normally see at JordanCon, and that was great. And I did pitch Jody on Multiverse. I don't know what she's, whether she'll, go with it, but she's in the area, so I figure, it's she might be, if she's on the north side of Atlanta, it's still an hour drive, but
Yeah.
But I love that we get to see people. I had one guy come down, and it was Saturday morning, and he says, I've been up since 7 a.m., working on that piece, ever since the talk last night. And I'm like, that's the kind of stuff I love hearing.
Yeah. I heard good things. People were telling me that it went really well, and that it was creative on both sides, the mentor and mentee. And the mentors were a lot of the mentors that mutual friends that we both have
Right.
were talking to me about it, and they were saying how much it inspired them and got them going. So
we're hoping that next year we're going to do much better on getting that information out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that that's the most difficult part, is reaching the attendees before they come and saying, hey, this is the opportunities you have.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why in Multiverse I really want to have those conversations, because I think that's where we'll gain the most strength, is finding out what's what would they like from us, because we'd be happy to do anything we can to work with writers. So that's our piece with it. But yeah, I love the workshop tracks. I love anything to do with writing and craft, because I'm constantly learning, just from books or from webinars or YouTubes, and these pieces where I get a chance to get some piece of information that you just haven't really placed into your writing yet.
Yeah.
And when you first do, it is a little awkward and maybe doesn't work as well, but later on it becomes part of you don't even think about it. It's like driving, you don't think about the pieces that you do when you do it, but that first time you learn something, it is very conscious in your mind. So I just love anything to do with the writing tracks and workshop tracks. Always been a passion.
Does it help you as a writer to be involved in this? Do you find your writing gets better from being involved in this?
Yes, just conversations, where you turn around and someone mentions an aspect that they're having trouble with, and you look at your own and you're like, do I put that? How do I put that in there? How is that part of my process? And then so you give yourself a little self-examination, some critical thought. And just sitting down there, Vanessa, came on and did one of our late night, pieces. And I just, I came in at a certain point, and sometimes I'll be at the door, but sometimes I'll walk inside and listen a little bit. And as I'm listening, I'm like, already there were components that I was like, I don't do that kind of spicy writing.
Right.
But the components used were perfectly reasonable as far as why you would have these concepts, within the piece, and how that might stir a romance writer. So I'm like, that even if it doesn't get to the spice end, it was still applicable in romance, period. There was more of it wasn't about, how to write, how to just, make it sexy, but to actually have the aspects of the characterization that would come about during those types of things. Well, that could also, you wouldn't even be in the more exposed scenes to have those emotions.
Yeah.
So there's a piece to learn right there. So
yeah,
there's always something. If you listen and don't know everything in the first place, you're bound to learn something. I mean, that from in your industry, you're constantly learning new ways to bring something out. And sometimes it is just a casual mention or a conversation. Sometimes it is an actual heavy duty workshop kind of piece, but you still learn.
I think you hit on something very interesting too, which is something that I've always contended, and Multiverse is a great example of it, because at Multiverse, I attended this. I was watching the room for Vanessa when she was doing something that she needed to do It was this was a couple years ago now, and I got to sit on the inclusion panel and the disability panel and talk about that. And I learned so much about how to handle that writing, sensitivity writing, and things of that nature. I just absorbed it, and I feel like oftentimes we're going so fast, we're running around, we're doing a lot of stuff, and yeah, it's great to be on panels, it's great to moderate panels, and those are, things that we all covet and love. Also, time to sell too for those that sell at tables. But I feel like if you're not going to panels when you have an opportunity to go to them, you're doing yourself a disservice, really, because you never know. And even if it's a panel you didn't think you would ever think about attending, if you just go, you might get something from it that you never expected.
Yep. I mean, I've sat with, fantasy panels, and it's just an aspect that a reader loves. It's just as much value to me as what a writer said. A writer that's more established says you should do this, because the reader is who I'm trying to reach.
Right.
So if they love the way this happens, I'm like, do I do that?
Yeah.
Am I bringing that into my story? Because if not, I need to. Because this reader is exposing me to something that they find positive in their experience, and that's all I'm aiming for, right? So, like you said, anything can be a stimulation, can be an artifact that you can, sort of meditate on later on and say, is this, how am I using this, and if I'm not, how can I put this in there? So yes, I agree. Anything you can do, but yes, sometimes the events get real tiring, and you're literally like after, a couple.
Yeah, you need some me time sometimes, right?
Leads us right back to the new location with those beautiful little gardens.
Yeah,
you can stand out and look at plants for a minute, and chill out.
Another disservice you're doing yourself if you don't walk outside at least once and just take a trail.
Yeah, and it is gorgeous.
There's amazing things. There was a last year they had the go-kart parade where they have all the residents there with their go-karts doing a parade down the street. I thought that was really funny. Golf carts are like a thing in Peachtree City. For people who don't know, I went to a Mexican restaurant off of the site, and there was parking for the golf carts.
Yeah, we went to a gas station, and there was probably 50-50 golf cart, because it was a convenience store gas station.
Yeah.
50-50 golf carts and cars, and I was like, okay.
Well, they need gas too, right? They run a gas. So, I don't think there's any electric golf carts right now.
Most of them were running inside, for convenience stuff. But it was like, I'm like looking at it like that would be pretty nice just to just cruise it on.
I mean, you live in a part of the world that's pretty infamous for being kind of like a golf cart area, right? I mean, I mean, you don't live in like the part that most people would think of in Florida about, where you go to retire and you just that's your life. The city you live in is the city you do everything in, basically.
And I have a friend of mine. He's from JordanCon. And he definitely lives down in areas where it is very common. I mean, in the neighborhoods to see golf carts going on. Now up here we're a little more redneck, so it's the ATVs.
Yeah.
and they do their bit, and we have alongside of our highway. We live on a highway, Kalancolly. It goes from Madison up to Valdosta. And along it, someone took the time a long time ago to build a bike trail. Now, it's wide enough for an ATV, so of course they use it too. But it is paved, and it goes all the way up from Madison to the Swanee River up in Georgia. And yes, you see plenty of, dirt bikes and ATVs using that on occasion. So we got our own kind of golf cart thing going on, but not exactly.
I love that. Mud bogging in the south.
Yeah. Redneck golf cart.
I'm curious right now where you're at in your career. what is there left for you to accomplish? What is something you're aiming for right now? Short term, long term. What are you looking at in terms of your writing career? Because you're pretty accomplished at this point. You have a publishing company going. You have a bookstore. You have you've been writing for the better part of 25 years now. So I mean, where are you at in your mind, and where do you want to go?
I don't really have that aspect of like, I want, some, component. I mean, I get into the cons that I want to. I've ended the places I do want to. If I really want into usually, an anthology, I can usually pitch the right kind of story to the editors to get in. So I think most of mine is all about finding the new stories that excite readers. So like I'm working along with the Sorrowborn trilogy that I've been doing with April, and the Damn Detective Agency that I'm doing with Tim, which is more humorous. I've been working on a fantasy piece that's much more epic, and I've got 2 of the first books done. I'm not sure whether it's going to be 3 or 4. I think it's probably going to be 4 in the whole series, and that's been my focus. So mine is less about any kind of grand scales, but much more of the next project that really excites me that I'm writing. One of the areas that I may look at, just because of some of my styles of writing, I may do a little bit of horror work. And so that's sort of like, in my mind, I have got a sci-fi a series that I have always wanted to bring out, but it doesn't really blend with a lot of my readership. A lot of my readership is are people who will tend to range into the "Where's My Shirt" books. Even though I don't write there, but I'm on the edge, and that my characterization is around those kind of personalities. So I haven't really brought that out because it's a really far bend where I think the fantasy is a close enough bend that I can keep a lot of the readership with it. YA I know does, because a large segment of my readership does. So mine has been less about any grand positioning, because I really I'm just doing what I enjoy doing rather than trying to I've done so many things in my life that are real career focused, that this is very much, and I still have other businesses that I run, but this is the part that I'm doing because this is what I've always enjoyed, was a creative aspect of life. So for me, it's less of, it's going to be always the next project that really excites me. That's what it's going to be, is my next big thing. No big 5-year plans, no big, I need to get a movie deal, or I need to do these things. It's very much of, does this project excite me? If it does, that's what I'm about right now, and digging into. And where I go is because I'm always working. So where I'm working is so I'm always coming back and editing the pieces that I've done. And then moving back into another project, and then editing a piece, writing it, and then editing that project while I'm writing something else. But I have the opportunity and time, so why not take it? So yeah, I wish I don't even wish that I had grand plans, because I've done that most of my life.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get this business going. I'm gonna I'm working for this company, and these are our goals, and this is what my internal goals within that company are, and all those things in early, I've done credit card collection, multiple kind of businesses. I've been, sous chef, done all these things that I've had aspirations for more of a, where can I be? And right now I'm where I want to be. It's much more of, what project, do I want, next. Now, would I love to, win some major awards? Yes, but that'll happen when it happens. It's not something that you sit there and, I'm going to get this award.
You can't control any of that. That's all out of your hands. But
Right. Yeah, but feel free to put me up for any awards you want. That'll be a goal I'll take. But yeah, I've gotten a chance to get some small local Florida kind of stuff, and I'm happy with those.
Nice. So tell everybody a little bit about this book you just released with April. What it's about and what the series is going to end up being.
All right. So the Sorrowborn trilogy is written and done. One of the things we did was we wrote the whole trilogy, editing it as we went. Getting it. We used Robin Huss for an editor, even though my wife is an editor.
Right.
It's
that's
not
smart though. I think that's the best way to do that.
It really is. And when we came back and proofed it, we had, we still had things that we both found over and over.
Sure.
We need to get this fixed or add this to this. So the benefit was we had the third book written while we were editing, the first and second, so that we could come in and say, all right, we need to bring this aspect earlier on and make sure that it's a focus. Basically we have a coming of age, but it's a romance. So YA, Caitlin is our protagonist in a dystopian setting, and the sorrow is the dystopian part, and those who are born during it, some of them gain powers, and of course, humanity being what it is, they don't like powers that they can't control. So the Sorrowborn end up in labs. They end up being used as the military eventually puts them to work to go hunt cryptids that have come along with the sorrow. So she is this protagonist that wants nothing to do with the military, but doesn't really have any choice but to be in these camps. And so her job is to sort of hunt cryptids and do all that bit. And when a local teen gets bit by a werewolf, her job would be to make sure that basically that werewolf, that you can't stop the infection. It's done. It's over. They're going to turn, and they need to be, captured, killed, whatever they're going to be doing. But instead, she tries to use her healing powers to heal the infection out of him. And so that's our romance.
Right.
Is the initial start isn't quite a meet cute, considering there's werewolves that she's throwing all over with her powers, and local teen that's about to turn into a werewolf in the next 24 hours. So it wouldn't be exactly meet cute, but it definitely was our moment that we were able to bring in that she's willing to rebel against everything she's been trained on, and even her friends who are part of this, to try to save Dean, which she does partially successfully. Not enough that whenever he gets strong emotions, he still doesn't turn, but enough so that he doesn't just automatically succumb to it. So that was the whole premise that we started. And so a lot of it is about saving Dean.
Nice.
And we've really enjoyed working with a world that we had sort of set up of the cryptids that we had involved. And as we could expect, not all cryptids are bad. But the human military certainly thinks so, because that's their job, is to find the other and attack them, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we got to play with a lot of themes within there, as you can imagine. Because I have rather patriarchal military authority going on. So yeah, we got to have a lot of fun with that, because I got to have fun with it.
Nice. All right. Well, tell everybody where they can find what you got going on at Ink Publishing, and where they can find you and all your stuff.
Ink's Publishing right now, inkpub.com. You can definitely find a sci-fi anthology to submit to, a queer anthology to submit to, and Cthulhu Dreams, a Lovecraftian anthology to submit to. And coming up, I've got Con Carolinas and Congregate, where I will get to see you again, Joe.
Yes, sir. Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, my friend. It's always great to see you. Always great to talk to you. Thank you for kicking off this season for me, and we'll see you. We'll see you very soon, in a few weeks. And
sounds good.
All right, everybody. We'll be right back with AM Colwell, and in the meantime, everything everywhere is certainly a theme with Multiverse, and it is theme with what you can do when you want to go there to eat. So check this out, and then we'll be right back with AM Colwell.
Folks were like, let's come up with some packages, some classes, some things like that you can do to really make it a good offering to people, not just turn us loose to go figure out how to, and just hope people go eat in the restaurant or something. So they've worked out some really good stuff with us. Like you can pre-purchase meals. There's, let's see, it's dinner Friday, all 3 meals on Saturday, and then breakfast and lunch on Sunday. You can buy them a la carte one at a time, or get them as a package. And the two, I think, coolest parts about this is one is that all of these, whether it's a la carte or the packages, taxes and tips are already fully included. So like whatever, if you buy one of those packages, that's all you pay. You're done. So those are, and every one of those, like if you're going to eat anyway, especially if you were going to eat in the restaurant anyway, this is a way to have it taken care of ahead of time with the taxes and gratuities included. And it helps Multiverse toward our obligation to the hotel. So those are really good. And
if you have dietary restrictions, we also are working with the hotel right now to try to come up with, like gluten-free options and things like that to make sure that we're being inclusive on that front as well.
Yeah. And one question we've gotten a few times just to go ahead and answer is that we will still have our con suite like we always do. This is not to replace that, but not everybody eats at the con suite. Sometimes you don't have time. Sometimes you want to, sit down and have a meal in the restaurant.
So everybody, if you want to get some packages, go do so at the multiversecon.org page and do that. In the meantime, we're going to sit here and talk to a brand new guest for us today, and I'm real excited. AM Colwell is here with us. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for having, taking the time to be here, and tell everybody a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
Yes. Wonderful. My pleasure. You can hear me okay, I hope?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Yes, my name is Ilea. I publish under the name AM Colwell. And I'm an author and an actor and animal lover. Generally, it's my first year attending Multiverse, and I'm so excited. And it's awesome that you do this for guests. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Tell me what motivated you to apply for Multiverse. What was it about Multiverse that struck you?
I think really it ultimately boils down to just how nerdy I am. Any kind of, I love cons. I've been going since I was like really small with my dad. I grew up on Star Trek, and so we went to all of these cons like before it was the world that it is now. I'm like a little kid, going and seeing people dressed like V from V for Vendetta, right? Like that might date me a little bit, but I've always loved cons. I love the camaraderie in the nerd community, and so many different fandoms that you can be a part of, and you can find your people there. And seeing that there was one, I live in the Atlanta area, so seeing one close by that was new was really exciting, and one that celebrated a whole bunch of different fandoms. Yeah.
How is Peachtree in relation to where you live? Are you going to have to get across the freeway to get there?
I think, yeah, we'll cross. We're in the perimeter. Okay. So, yeah, but it's a manageable drive for sure.
Yeah, I totally see that. That's awesome. So you've been going to cons for a long time. Have you ever attended Dragon?
Yes. Yeah. This will be this upcoming September will probably 3rd or 4th. We moved to Atlanta 3 years ago, so okay. I guess it'll be the 4th DRC that we go to.
Nice. In reading about you, it's very interesting. You're you've done a lot of things in your life. You're relatively young as well, and doing a lot of great stuff. So, I mean, the acting you've been acting for a very long time, and then now you're getting into publishing and writing, and which is really exciting. I'm curious, what came first for you? Was it you wanted to be an actor, and then writing was something that you were like looking at to expand yourself, or was it you always were a writer, you always wanted to be a writer, but then acting kind of came in and kind of took over? How did that happen for you?
Yeah, I've always done both. I've always loved stories, and my study was primarily in theater. So my background is all in theater, stage and film and TV and all that good stuff. And at a certain point, you realize that when you're telling a story in that medium. So as an actor, you're relying on a lot of other people. You need a screenwriter, you need a director, you need the rest of the cast, and you need an audience. And so I started like producing a lot of my own work in my early career. When like writing and all of that stuff, but it takes a lot of effort to find, a whole crew of people to work with you. And I had always been a writer. Obviously, I'm sure with many other writers, our background starts with fan fiction, right? So when I was, in middle school and in high school, I loved reading and I loved the stories. And so I would start learning how to write through fan fiction. And at a certain point, there's a kind of freedom in being able to tell a story without having to rely on a lot of other people. Of course, the most satisfying part of being an actor and making a movie or a TV show or putting on a stage production is seeing a lot of people put their best work forward and working together just to tell a story, right? It's incredibly inspiring and I love being part of it. There's nothing like it. But you still do need to find all of those people to work with you to tell that story. And that is hard sometimes, right? And it can be expensive because you want to pay people for their work. And it's much simpler to be just like, okay, well, I have a day to myself today. What can I do? And I can tell a story and it's just me and my computer or me and a pen. And there's freedom to that. And so both have always been my passion, but it's only just the writing has only just recently become something that I've been pursuing in a much more, I guess, like career-driven kind of way.
Have you thought about? I mean, a lot of projection, or a lot of where the actors go because they get into this business and they realize the business is, what it is, and I don't want to throw shade on the business, even though it's a horrible business that I've been in a long time as well, and it's there is a horrible aspect to it, but a lot of times what I find for actors, especially ones that have been around for a while and doing the same thing over and over again, or starting to get typecast or stuff like that, is they break out and they write their own thing and then they want to make it themselves. Have you had aspirations to kind of be behind the scenes a little bit more since, now that you've published books and gone through that process, has that kind of helped that a little bit?
Oh, I've always wanted to do everything. There's
I love that.
There's never been any limitations for me. The only thing I don't like doing in the entertainment side is, I guess I should say the two things. I don't like producing, right? Producing is something that I have to do in order to get the stories told. And I don't like marketing. I'm really bad at that. So, and that's unfortunately something like, you think, oh, if you're good at what you do, that's all that matters, right? Yeah. But you do need to have this kind of business mindset to be able to advertise yourself, to market yourself, and I'm bad at that. But I've always loved any aspect of telling a story or producing a show. Or we just shot a short that I wrote. We shot it last year, and I ended up directing it as well. I will say it's very hard to direct something that you're also in, but there's the advantage that I wrote it. So I knew what I wanted, but I wish that it's hard. I love acting so much that it would be really hard to see somebody else in that role. So it would have been nice to have another director, but I think it would be too difficult for me to direct something that I'm not in, because I want to be in it. I want to be in the story.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a difficult part. I've only done bit part. I took the Hitchcock route and just did one scene where I'm in it or something like that, and that's usually because an actor didn't show up or something, and I'm just like, well, I'll just do it. But
but it's fun, right?
I don't know. I'm not so sold on the acting as much. I liked improv though. Improv was pretty cool. I enjoyed that part of it. But learning lines and things like that, those are the kind of disciplines that kind of escape me a little bit.
Well, there are so many of us to choose from. There's no shortage of actors. So
I think you're going to be a welcome sight at Multiverse, simply because we were just talking with Kevin Davis earlier, on the show, and he was talking about one of his favorite elements of Multiverse, which is this. We do this interesting thing in Multiverse, which is called story time, and it's basically readers get up and read, or authors get up and read a passage of the book, and we have people come up on stage and act out that scene. So there's no professional actors on that stage, so you might be getting a lot of like, hey, you should go to this.
That would be great. That sounds like so much fun.
And
I will say
you might end up going up a few times and doing some scenes.
No complaints. No complaints. I've been doing a lot of audiobook narrations, including narrating my own. So it's like that's another aspect that I love. So you'd have a hard time getting me off that stage.
Nice, awesome. Yeah, it's a fun experience. It's one of those unique things about Multiverse that I think is just so special about it is that idea and coming out of your shell a little bit. People who are typically bandied introverts go up there a lot and get to play a little bit, and I think it's a lot of fun. So
that's one of my favorite things about cons, right? It's like allowing a lot of people who might feel uncomfortable in the world be themselves in a place that's like a judgment-free zone. I love that.
And Multiverse is to the nth degree even more so inclusive, and that's one of the great things about Multiverse. So you picked a good one to come to, for sure. So in your publishing career and where you're at writing right now, talk a little bit about that shift for you and what did acting help you resolve as a writer? What do you think the one gave to the other that maybe people would think that not so much so that it would be doing that?
Far and away dialogue. When you're an actor, that's a lot of what you're studying, right? Like obviously, that's what we have to work with. Obviously there's stage directions and there are the other actors, but most of what you're focusing on in your study is what are you saying and what do you mean, and how is that different from the words that you're saying and how do you say it. So my favorite things to write has always been a scene between two people where they're just talking. Obviously books can't be made up entirely of that, but dialogue has always been the thing that comes the most easily to me. And if I ever think about what makes me choose this story or how do I come up with a story idea is like I come up with an opening image or a main character and what are they doing at the beginning, and then I think what would I like to see this character doing and who do I want to see them interacting with, and then it's just how can I get to a scene where they're talking to somebody. So dialogue is my favorite thing to write, and I think it's the easiest thing for me to write, and I think that's largely due to my background as an actor.
And you have to fill in the gaps a lot of times as an actor too, right? You have to do background on your character and kind of figure out where the motivations come from. Does that help with kind of exposition a little bit in a novel?
I don't know how much that would help with it. I think what would help the most with exposition is reading other stories and watching movies and TV shows and seeing how it's done well and seeing how you wouldn't want it done necessarily. A lot of actors have different approaches in terms of how they'll flesh out a character. I'm not one of, like, I know there are people who write like whole essays about, what their character wants. And I don't necessarily follow that same school of thought in terms of how I approach a role. Mine is usually I work from the outside in. So it's more like, how do they represent themselves physically and what kind of movements do they have? And so it's a little bit different. So I don't know if that helps so much with exposition, but I do love the opportunity of being able to inhabit a lot of characters that I couldn't play, right? So you have to recognize the importance of casting. And even though you wish you could play a role, it's like, well, I'm 5'2" and this character is 6 feet tall and I can't do it. Or, they have just like it, or sometimes it's just a vibe thing. And you just know like, well, I can't get away with that. Like Florence Pugh and I are kind of like same stature, right? But I know that I'm not going to be able to do what she can do because she's got a very specific vibe, not to mention she's incredibly talented, right? But being able to like inhabit the minds of characters that I know I couldn't do as an actor is super exciting as a writer. So I guess that would be like my opportunity to kind of think about their backgrounds, you know, as a writer in a way that I couldn't do as an actor.
Does your writing represent some of the your favorite things to do as an actor? Like, is your writing more comedic or dramatic? Because that's what you tend to gravitate toward as an actor, you find?
I think that there is maybe, now that you say it, there might be subconsciously an element of that for sure. You're not going to see me, I mean, really, you're not going to see me writing things that I wouldn't want to read. And I'm a big mood reader. So I have been steering away from heavy drama. Not to mention that, not to say that there isn't drama, obviously, because that's fun sometimes, right? But they're not books that are going to like make you just feel beaten down at the end of reading them. Like there's dramatic moments, of course, there's conflict, but I guess that there is an element of how would I like, what is the kind of scene that I would like to watch, and can I put that in my story?
How much of your fandom love seeps into, you know, homages of what you do and how you do it? Is that something that you take to heart, you kind of draw from?
I'm sure it does. In fact, it's a struggle not to let it infiltrate it too much. My dad did give me a note that I ignored completely, saying this is too much like that thing in Star Trek. And it's going to feel like a room. I'm like, I don't care. I love Star Trek too much. And, you know, hopefully tweaked it enough that it, and pulled from real life enough to hopefully turn it into something that's unique to the story. But yeah, it's absolutely there for sure. The hard part is not letting it become too overwhelmingly tributes to stories that I love.
Yeah, or plagiarizing, right? Or
right, yeah, God forbid.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is the fine line you have to walk, right, a little bit, and
yeah,
I've edited myself down for some of that before, you know.
Yeah.
So,
and you can indulge sometimes where it's like, well, maybe like I'll just open up another document and I'll let myself go down the role and just kind of be like fan fiction, for lack of a better word. But yeah.
Do you because I do this, and you know, I've already proclaimed my distaste for acting, but I read out loud and I act out everything that I'm writing, especially if it's novel length. Are you somebody who does that as well? Do you like to do your own version of a table read?
I think it's sort of necessary. When you're reading in your head, you know, silently, it's not gonna, you can gloss over things very easily. Versus if you're reading it out loud, you'll notice things that you wouldn't necessarily have, the cadence of the way somebody speaks, like a character, or just if there's like a line that kind of reads a little bit awkwardly. Something I discovered was necessary when I was recording the audiobook for my first book, and then I went and made a couple of changes as it went. So lesson learned that is necessary. And it's great because I am recording the audiobook, so I'm going to do it anyway. But yeah.
What made you go the indie route? What made you feel like you needed to, you know, do that instead of be traditionally published in a lot of respects?
Sure. I did try to be traditionally published at first with my first book. I think 2020 gave me the gift of time. So I had a lot of time on my hands, and that was when I finished my first manuscript. And I didn't even, I was so unaware of indie publishing at all, and spent a lot of time submitting. And it harkens back to what we spoke about at the beginning, about how you have to rely on other people. And I wanted writing to be something that I could do on my own. And at a certain point, I was like, I don't need somebody else to tell me that this is a good story.
Yeah.
And then it was the show Silo on Apple, which is a wonderful show. And we watched the first 3 episodes, and then I was like, I have to know what happens. saw it was based off of a book series, read all of them in like a week or something. I don't know. I could not put them down, and discovered that he had self-published those, that he was an indie author at the beginning. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that like you could do that. So I just published it, and it was kind of this like incredible like freedom where I was like, oh, the story isn't mine anymore. Like I can let go, because I hadn't really been writing very much, and I hadn't, because I had this feeling that this was incomplete, even though the manuscript was finished. And so I published it, and then I was like, oh, I can write the sequel now. And so I wrote the second book, and then because I didn't have to worry about anybody else, I let that one go too. And now I'm almost done with my third book, which will be premiering at Multiverse. So it was a kind of a freedom that was completely unexpected, born of but the only reason it didn't happen earlier was because it never occurred to me that was something people could do. And did I make mistakes? Sure. Were there things I wish I had known before? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we can say that about everything, right? Yeah. But I'm continuing to write and continuing to publish, so it will hopefully only get better from here.
Awesome. Yeah, it definitely will. It definitely will.
Yeah.
That's the one thing about it, right? It's that old adage: the more words you write, the more you understand what you're writing. So,
yes, I've never heard that before, but boy, is that true. Once I described writing for I know that there are people who plan everything out. I am not one of those people. So it's kind of like you start, I kind of am like, it's like doing a puzzle without knowing what the image on the box is.
I love that.
And then you sort of like figure it out as you go, and then you're kind of like filling in gaps, and you're like, okay, well, I got this part here, and then there's like a giant thing that's missing over here, and that's what revisions are for, right? But I tried planning before. It doesn't work, because if you try to make your characters do what you've decided they should do, but then you write a scene and it's like, oh, they're going to go do this other thing instead, and they're not going to be put in a box, and it's like planning out does not work for me. I have to let the characters do what they're going to do. So it's all a discovery as more words get written.
Sure. Having written your own short too, do you find that writing screenplays is a whole different exercise for you, a whole different muscle to use for writing?
Yes, not the same at all. I have even toyed with writing, like if I want to write something for the screen, I'm like, maybe I should write it as, a short story first and then convert it. It's so vastly different. And I have found that writing novels is such an internal practice, because you're thinking about the character, right? Where you're thinking about what they're feeling and what are they going to do next. Whereas you're writing a screenplay, that's all external. It's all what does the audience see rather than what is the character feeling. You hope an actor will be able to convey what they're feeling, but it's an external exercise as opposed to an internal one. So I have found, like, starting with a novel and then and transcribing it or turning it into a screenplay is not effective for me. What I have found is I have to close my eyes and literally imagine that I'm seeing a movie in my head, and then see if I can write that on the page. It is so different, and it's very frustrating because you want it to be the same, right? But it is not. and it's like they're not, it's not like you can just switch a scene, like take a scene that's written, and even if it's mostly dialogue, you can't just put it in the right format and then all of a sudden it's a script, right? It's like they're so completely different.
What has been your favorite role to play to date, either stage, screen, or otherwise?
Oh my gosh. Well, I got to play Peter Pan in college, and that was a dream role, so I would have to say Peter Pan. That was on stage, yes. I did a short years and years and years ago in which I got to play opposite Beethoven. I played like a young woman who's in love with Beethoven, and she finds a way to travel back in time to meet him, which was, I had written it. It's obviously inspired by my own love of Beethoven. So that was really exciting, because then I got to like cast somebody to be Beethoven and play all these scenes with him. So that would be my favorite on camera. Like thinking about, I mean, it's hard on the spot. I don't have an answer ready, but if I were to think like Peter Pan on stage and then that role on film.
Are you again, stage and screen are two different muscles as well, right? In terms of the acting craft. Do you enjoy, is theater something that you love to do? Is that something that as an actor you just had to do it?
I love it, but I love it all. I love theater. I just did a live show here in Atlanta last October, which was a wonderful experience to get back on stage. The only reason I don't pursue it more is really just because of the time commitment. Theater does take up so much more time, but there is, on the flip side, a very satisfying reaction of being with the audience in the room, which obviously you don't get with film and TV. So they both have their pros and cons, right? But I love it all. I'm not going to turn anything down, stage or film.
Such an iconic character like Peter Pan too, where so many people have done it before and played it. I would imagine, playing with that character and giving it your spin as an actor must have been one of the best exercises you could possibly do.
It was such a great experience. I'm so grateful that I was given that opportunity. And Peter Pan's always been one of my favorite stories, and it was always a dream role. And I'm happy I was able to do it before I got too old. and now they're casting, men in the role. So which is, it's great. And I just saw it was at the Fox Theater last week. It just closed last night, and I got to see it, and it was just great. But it was. I don't know if it was an exercise. Peter has always been like a character that I've loved so much, and that I've even written fan fiction for it in my youth. And I think that there was a part of him that kind of always inhabited my mind. So I was sort of just like, I felt like a kid in a candy store with that role. I don't even feel like I was doing any acting at all. Who knows how good my performance was, right? But it was really just me having fun.
Nice. Yeah. If you're not doing what you love, why there's the adage, why do it, right? But I mean, you have to do jobs to do jobs sometimes, but I mean, that I would imagine a labor of love like that, you just absorb every ounce of that, let it seep into you, right? Is there a role that has eluded you that you've wanted to play that you haven't done yet?
Yes, one I've aged out of it, I'm sure. Tom Stoppard's Arcadia is a show. The main female character, Thomasina, in that I would have loved to play in my youth. And Rosalind in Shakespeare's As You Like It is one of the greatest heroines. Also, I would have loved the opportunity, but it's evaded me. I don't think I've aged out of that one quite yet. No. But yeah, and then of course, Star Trek, anything in Star Trek, literally any chance to put on the uniform and stand on a ship. So yeah, anything, literally.
What's your favorite series of Star Trek?
That is such a hard question because there are so many. I love Voyager. I love Deep Space Nine. Lower Decks also was phenomenal, the new animated show. And then Strange New Worlds has kind of been blowing me away. Very excited about the next season coming up, but Strange New Worlds is killing it. So, and then Enterprise, I don't think gets its due. There was a lot of good in the later seasons of Enterprise, but I don't think I could choose just one. It's too hard.
Would you be okay being a red shirt in one of these?
Yes, literally anything. Even if I'm not in Starfleet, even if I'm just like some random alien on some world that they go to, I don't care. I just want to be on the show.
Be one of the people in the bar or in the when they're docked walking around, being just whatever. Background.
Yeah. We'll be background in a cartoon. I don't even care.
Awesome. Well, tell everybody a little bit about your story, your book that you have out, that the series that now how you have 2 out on. Tell everybody, give it a little taste of what it's about and where it's going.
Sure, I'd love to. So I have the first 2 books published. It will be a trilogy. And then there will be a companion duology set in the same world that doesn't exist yet. Most of the first book in that duology does. But the first 2, it's The White Mask Society is book 1. The Guardians is book 2. It is a YA / new adult contemporary fantasy that would be fit for people who like Percy Jackson, the Shadowhunters series, or Shatter Me. So it's following a young woman who discovers that she has visions of the future, and then there's a nefarious man who's trying to steal her ability. And there is a closed door romance and an open door romance version of the second book for readers of all ages, so people can choose what level of romance they'd like. And then premiering at Multiverse will be my next book, which is separate from the White Mask Society. It is a standalone adult science fiction story, science fiction romance. My husband calls it science friction. So, the title hasn't been announced, but you can keep an eye on my socials or my website, or sign up for my newsletter, and hopefully the title will be announced either at the end of this month or in June.
Well, tell everybody where they can go to do that.
Of course, yes, of course. IleaColwell.com is my website. You can sign up for my newsletter there. On Instagram, AM Colwell Writes, and then there will be links there to anything pertinent. But those are going to be the primary ways to keep in touch.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the Multiverse family. We're happy to have you.
I'm so excited.
Thank you so much for taking this time to come talk to me about all your stuff and who you are, because I found it fascinating, and it's just amazing. So thank you so much for being here and doing all that.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for letting me come and talk to you. It's been great, and I will see you at Multiverse.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll look forward to meeting you in person.
Yes, likewise. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, that is the show for this time around. We are just getting started with a spotlight on the Multiverse. We're going to be doing some unique things for this season as well, which we'll talk more about down the road. But this has been a wonderful way to start off our season, and I want to thank Kevin and Aaliyah for being here and doing everything that they're doing out there to just be great artists, and because for us it's just a wonderful experience to talk to people creatively and give you an insight to where the multiverse is headed with the kind of people that we want to see represented there. And so the two of them are going to represent us well. So I really appreciate all of that. And if you're interested in joining us for Multiverse, the con is still got opportunities to be a part of it, volunteer-wise, signing up for things, and attending. If you're in the Southeast, I don't know why you're not showing up to Multiverse, but it's relatively affordable. It's a wonderful weekend of really great opportunities to network and be a part of it. You can get all the information at multiversecon.org. And thanks again for joining us, and we'll be back here next Monday with another spotlight on the Multiverse. And that's because it's always time to go indie now. Bye, everybody.